Pleased to welcome Amina Mohamed. Amina, you're with Cameras for Girls. Maybe let's just start by telling people, number one, who you are and what the organization that you've founded is all about.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast, Craig. So my name is Amina Mohamed. I'm the founder and executive director of Cameras for Girls. We are a Canadian charity, but also recently registered in Uganda as a nonprofit. What we do is we work with young women in Africa who are trying to graduate in journalism, communications, photography, photojournalism, and we equip them with a camera to keep and a year-long program in photography, ethical storytelling, and business skills, because we fit the gap between their theoretical university education and what they need to actually succeed and get work, paid work, in male-dominated media spaces.
So Uganda, that's a bit of a stretch from Canada. Are you originally from Uganda?
Yeah. So my family and I came as refugees. I was 3. I'm 57 now. We came in 72 after Idi Amin had kicked all the Indian Asians out of the country with 90 days notice. And the first time I went back to Uganda was in 2007. I was actually working in film and television. I went back to do a documentary and kind of discover my roots on the one hand, or my family's roots, and tell the story of the Indians who were starting to go back and claim their property. And Uganda had always been in my heart, but that trip cemented Uganda in my heart. And more, it was a learning trip for me, because I was starting to meet young women who were telling me, well, at 14, I was married off because my family couldn't afford to give me an education. Or, they would educate my brothers, but they wouldn't educate me. And then I met this woman who said, I want to work in media. And at the time I was working media, right? And so I immediately got intrigued and I was like, so how's it going? Like, what do you do? And now this was 2007 when, Uganda was still struggling with internet and electricity and all the regular things you need to live a good life. And it still is in many places. And she was telling me how the simple gift of a simple thing like a camera could not unlock a career for her. It was a male-dominated, like it was a gender equality thing. It was gender-based barrier to employment, whereas men could get jobs without any skills and tools and what have you. But I didn't know at the time how to take what I knew in film and television and photography and storytelling and move it forward. And it took me 10 years to figure it out, but I finally did.
So let's pause there for a second. Let's go back a little bit into your personal background. You've come over from Uganda. You're raised here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What got you interested in film, television, and journalism in the first place?
It was a happy accident. So I had finished college actually in fashion design. I had a camera in my hand since I was 10, but I never envisioned that this could be my path, because I grew up in a very strict household, always being told what I was going to be, what I could do, what I could not do. And photography, even though I had that camera and I had a passion, I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the support mechanism behind me to say, Amina, follow your dream. But I went into fashion because I hated school, or school hated me, and because my mom was a fashion designer, a seamstress. And so I thought, okay, here's my escape. I can just go do that. I came out, I was making wedding dresses by hand beating the whole thing. And one day my friend who's working in film says, hey, do you want to come to set and pick up a check with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go to Toronto, we go and pick up her check, and her boss looks at me like up and down, like in a very, sexual manner. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? And she goes, do you want a job? And I said to her, like, doing what? The way you're looking at me. She said, oh, it's catering. I said, no, thanks. And then she said, it pays $18 an hour. And now this is like 1990. And I'm like, okay, sold. And so I started in catering. I did that for almost a year. And then I approached the wardrobe mistress on the show that I was working on. And I said, look, what does it take to get into the wardrobe department? She said, go down to the union, tell them you can sew. Can you sew? And I said, yeah, I can sew. She said, great, I'll hire you. So I did. And she started hiring me on a part-time free basis because I had to get my chops under union rules. And then eventually I was working on tons of shows in wardrobe. My last film was American Psycho. And then I hurt my back very badly, couldn't walk. And I thought, now what do I do? So I went back to school and I thought, oh, I'll just go and get a diploma in film. And I ended up teaching a lot of the budgeting and scheduling course alongside my teacher because I was already doing that on set. And what it taught me was that I had the chops to be a producer. So I came out of school and I started producing my own shows. My first short film went to TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival. I would do music videos with Much Music and anything I could get my hands on. And then a feature film, which I didn't want to put my name on because I thought it was a piece of garbage.
So
Um,
you
but
have
yeah, I did a lot. I did a lot.
I want to go back to something you said. You have this eclectic background. You're growing. You come up, but there's this moment of inspiration where you're saying, "Hey, I can teach my experience
Mm-hmm.
to young women in Uganda who are facing maybe even more of this oppression, maybe more of the not maybe oppression is the wrong word, but
No,
more of the
oppression's a good word. Oppression's
more
a
of
very good
this,
word.
yeah, more of the sexism. So where does that come from? This desire to give back and to build community?
So we came to Canada and we had nothing. Like I grew up, in not a very well-to-do family, and we struggled a lot, sometimes not being able to pay the rent or, food was tough, all that stuff. But the one thing my parents instilled is always give back. Maybe we don't have enough, but somebody's always worse off than you. And I grew up with this, right? I would volunteer a lot throughout my life. And then I left film and television after 15 years. I adopted a little girl. I went through a very difficult time with that because it was like, here, baby, or here, child, figure it out, right? No supports. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had to find her the support. And I ended up leaving film and television because it was very long days. And then I found myself working in the financial industry because my mom is the creative, my dad is an accountant. So I got both sides of the brain. And so I did that for 5 years as a mortgage agent. And, I was making money, I was meeting a lot of international clients. I should have been happy. But inside, I had put away my creativity. I had put away that storytelling and that photography. And I thought, there's got to be something better to life than this. So in August 2017, I woke up and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back to Uganda and I'm going to teach girls photography. And I woke my husband up in August 2017. I can't remember the date, but I woke him up in the middle of the night and said, Thomas, I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And he literally said, here we go again, because I was always coming up with crazy ideas. My family would say, why can't you just stick to one thing, right? Because I had to leave something that I really loved. And so I started researching who could I work with in this? And at first it wasn't girls in media. It was girls who had been affected by the war in the North by Joseph Kony, the child soldiers. But there was no electricity and there's no internet. And if I gave a girl a camera, I was told she would sell it for food. So then my fixer for my documentary, who was a journalist, said to me, Amina, you need to work with girls who are learning how to be journalists. And I said, what would they learn from me? He said, photography and storytelling, because they don't have it in school and they're told they need a camera to keep and earn and know how to use to get paid. So I thought, bingo. So we went to Uganda in 2018, August, a year later exactly. After I took out my savings, I found every single mismatched camera that I could get, and we tried a test. And 2 weeks after I got home, one of the girls wrote to me to say, Amina, I had a job as a journalist. I've been employed on paper for 6 months, but not getting paid and not getting published because I didn't own a camera. When you gave me that, I went to show my editor that now I had a camera to keep and I knew how to use it to tell the stories. And now I'll be paid and published 4 times a week minimum. And that was the moment I knew that we were onto something. That my crazy idea, because people told me, that's never going to work. You're stupid. Why would you want to go and work with girls in Africa? Just, be happy with what you've got. Stay in Canada, blah, blah, blah. Right? And if I had listened to the naysayers, I would have never been doing this work.
I don't think there's anybody that's going to tell you what you can and can't do, Amina.
That's true. That's true.
I'm really curious though. So you went forward to launch this project in Uganda, but you said that you intentionally did it as a trial. How important was that
Yes.
trial period in
Yeah.
cementing? You've already said it did, but without that trial period, what would you have missed? What did you learn through that trial period that was so important?
Yeah. So when I first started and I was speaking to Venix, he's the journalist, I didn't at the time get the chance to speak to any of the girls that we were recruiting. They were coming all from Macquarie University's journalism program. They'd either graduated last year or the second last year. And there was no two-way street to ask them for input. What do you want? Like, what do you need to succeed? I was like every other, outsider, because I'm still an outsider, who thought, oh, I got an idea. I got a solution, and I'll just give it to them and they can take it. It was a not, by doing this trial and then giving them a survey after of learning of what was missing that helped us to build the curriculum that we have today, and continuing to ask at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year-long program if it fits for them, not for our charity, that you find the successful program. You don't do it by just building and saying they will come, because you can build a program, but if it doesn't meet the needs of the people that you're building it for, what's the point?
Since you started the program, you mentioned over 10 years ago, have you seen the journalism situation in Uganda or the employment situation with young girls in Uganda? Have you seen that change or evolve, or is it still kind of the same as it was when you got started?
I would say the difference is that media now, with the internet, with, at the time it was very difficult to get onto internet, right? If you didn't have data access, you couldn't access this. I don't think we had platforms like Facebook or Instagram or any of those platforms, or right, that you could go and expand. Now, because of the expansion of the internet and its opportunities, you're not just typically going into a media house and saying, oh, I've graduated, this is where I have to work. You have so many options. Having said that, if you're not supported with a program, I'm not saying Cameras for Girls is the only program out there, but if you're not supported with a holistic program that cares about you before, during, and after, because we have a 6-month mentorship program right after the year long, you're never going to succeed, because number one, you don't have the tools. Second, you don't know how to use the tools, right? You could own a camera and not know how to use it to take photos. Doesn't matter, because it's just going to sit on the shelf. Number three, you don't know how to format and tell a good story. And number four, because we form our work around ethical storytelling, now these girls know how to go out into their communities and tell stories with and not about. So we leave that colonial language behind, colonial storytelling behind.
So that's very interesting that you've broken it down that way. I guess what I would like to understand is, give me a practical example of
Sure.
maybe a girl who
Yeah,
is in journalism
absolutely.
school, that like, how does this all play out in the real time in the real world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give you an example of Sharon. Sharon was in our program in 2019 and is still engaged today. And she's had a rough go of it. At the time, she was a single mom. Now she's got 2 kids. She's still a single mom. And she got a job after our program. She was working at a newspaper. But they would decide some days, oh, well, Sharon, we're not going to pay you this week, but we haven't had enough advertising dollars. And it took Sharon a long time to come back and say, Amina, the program was good in 2019, but it was not enough. What else can you do for me? So I set her up with a US mentor, Tiffany Orner, who is a woman. She was in the military, so she's got that, drill down the discipline kind of thing. Because as a single mom, Sharon had a goal, an idea, but she didn't know how to implement. Today, Sharon is hired by Tiffany to ghostwrite for her on LinkedIn and do social media. She's paid $200 a month. That $200 a month could disappear like that tomorrow because of all the expenses. But what we've taught Sharon is, I give you $200 a month, 10% comes off the top, and you save that for the rainy day. Because the Tiffany could tomorrow decide, you know what, this is great. I've set up Sharon enough. I think she's sustainable on her own. And then what? So there's patience. Patience was the reason we set up a mentorship program.
So,
During,
yeah, sorry to interrupt you. This is
yeah.
far more than just teaching people film and journalism skills.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have to instill in them business skills. We build their LinkedIn profile. We teach them how to network with it. We also teach them how to build a one-page business plan. It's not extensive, but you need to know where you are today and where you want to go tomorrow. Then we teach them how to save money, but we also teach them how to get paid fairly. So we look at the rates in Uganda. We look at the rates in Tanzania. What's the base rate? But how do you calculate your hourly rate so that when you get a job, you're not saying, oh, somebody says, well, what do you charge? You know what your hourly rate is, and you can advocate for yourself. So we teach them all of these, including how to be safe against sexual harassment, which is a real problem in the sector. So women will continue to struggle. Women continue to struggle here in Canada too, right? It's a reality. But when you are equipped with the skills, the tools, the knowledge, the support, you can go forward and make things happen for yourself.
It's really amazing that you're working in kind of, I would maybe break it down into 3 areas. There's obviously the education area, there's obviously female empowerment area, and there's obviously a notion of journalism as a tool for social change in a place like Uganda. So you're covering off kind of 3 big ticket items with the work that you're doing. How do people follow your work? How do they get engaged? How do they get involved more from an advocacy or volunteerism in support of the work that you're doing?
Thank you for that question. So we are on LinkedIn and Instagram. I would say our LinkedIn is growing much further, and it's where thought leadership comes out, and we can share stories not about just our work, but how do we build from the bottom up? Because we are at the stage where we are now in Uganda and Tanzania want to expand to Kenya, but we need big partners for that. And then, we raise funds both as monthly donors. We're looking to grow our monthly donor program. We're also looking to grow our donor advised kind of funding. And that is steadily growing, quickly growing in Canada. And we want to be a part of that pot, if you will. And I think, what many people fail to realize as charities, small to medium, is that if you're not jumping on the donor advised or DAF wagon, you're leaving money on the table. So that's something that we welcome donors to come and join us, because we can give you an immediate report about how we can give you a report on how your funds have been used. We're very transparent. And then, they can find us through our website, camerasforgirls.org. And it's more about conversations, right? If something is not making sense to you, reach out. I love to talk about our work, and I'd love to share more about how our students are succeeding.
So I just want to be clear. Obviously, this work doesn't happen without some measure of financial support. So monthly donors, gifts of kinds, using donor advised funds. But you mentioned sort of corporate sponsorships and corporate partners. What makes an ideal corporate partner for Cameras for Girls?
That's a great question. I think what makes a great corporate partner is when we can see a fit for both parties. It's not one-sided. It's not just what's in it for Cameras for Girls, but obviously, if it's a corporate donor, what's in it for them? When you invest in Cameras for Girls, you're not just investing in our growth. Because I'm a one-person founder, it's not sustainable over time. We need staff here, very minimal, fundraising and marketing staff, fractional. And then we need a country manager and M&E in Uganda. We can be lean and mean, right? But you're also investing in a girl's future. To invest in one girl with a camera, year-long program, mentorship, and all the support and training that she needs, because we have a online learning hub for her, $1,000. You could spend $1,000 these days on so many things that are never going to give you joy. But when you see that you've invested in a young woman who, at the beginning of our program, lacks confidence in herself or has been told, you don't belong in this space, as I was in many times in Canada, and then you see her come out after a year long and the comments that we make. I mean, I thank you for investing in me and seeing seeing what I was capable of before I could see it. And you push her and you prod her and you bring her along and you get to share in her journey. I bet you dollars to donuts that'll give you the best joy in your life.
And I just maybe a last comment. I suspect that a lot of the girls that are going through your program, may not end up with a career in journalism, but they've
Yep.
been impacted nevertheless with some of these other skills that you're teaching and training.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some girls who come through this and say, I don't want to be a journalist after, going through I love photography. How do I get a career in photography? Or some take this and they teach girls in their community because it's a ripple effect. When a girl can see herself through another woman or girl who has, succeeded, she can stop the early marriage. She can show her parents there's more to life than just being married off at age 14. Can you imagine what her life is like at age 14 when she's now in her mid 20s and she's got 5 to 7 children because she wasn't educated? The ripple of poverty continues because she can't now educate her children, right? And we can stop that.
Oh, listen, Amina, thank you for sharing your story and the important work that you're doing. And just once again, if people want more information or want to get involved, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm at Amina at cameras with an S, FOR, girls .org.
Thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity.